So this video, we're going to look at Unit 4, Lesson 3. Again, this is a practice assignment. So some of these lessons I will give you some help with. Some of the lessons I'm going to leave for you to figure out. But let's go ahead and start looking at this. Again, we're looking at variables. We're kind of learning about variables, how to assign them values. So I'm on the first level here. It says run this program, watch the variables, change value in the watch area. So I've got some code. They've already added the watchers for me. They want you to think about which lines the variable is being created and which lines the variable is being assigned. So at this point, we should kind of know. If we're going to create a new variable, we need that keyword var in front of the variable name. So if I look at my code, anywhere that I see that var command and then a name for the variable, that's the lines where the variable is being created. And if we look at this code, we can see that line 1, we're creating a new variable, and then line 2, we're creating a new variable. All right, now if we were to add a third variable over here in our toolbox, I'm not assigning a value here, so I could use this one. All right, type the name that I wanted to give it. That would create a new variable. If I wanted to create a variable and then immediately give it a value, I could use this one. All right, so this would create a new variable called name and give it the value Mr. Randall. But for now, they just want us to see which lines we're creating variables on and then which lines are we assigning values to those variables. So I'm going to look for this variable name followed by an equal sign, because that equal sign tells me that I'm giving that variable a value. So I'd be looking at line 5, I'd be looking at line 6. All right, that's where we're giving values to those variables that we created on lines 1 and 2. These lines are then just console logging out in this debug console some text along with the values that are currently assigned to these variables that I created. So if I go ahead and run this, let me speed it up so you can actually see what's going on. You can see that it prints it out. My watchers changed as I went. What they want you to do is change the number assigned to my favorite number and the string assigned to my favorite food. So you should, on your own, go to the 2 lines where we are assigning values to these variables. Change the number and change the string that's being assigned. And then you can go ahead and finish this level to move to the next one. All right, on lesson 2, we are kind of getting into the names that we need to give our variables. Again, we should be using camel case. We should be using something that's descriptive. But here's some pointers that you need to read through and need to know for the exam that you're going to have on this. Capitalization matters. So this myvar with a capital V is not the same as myvar with a lowercase v. JavaScript will read those as 2 different variables. Your names cannot have spaces in them. So we use camel case. Technically you could do an underscore, but we're not going to do this in this class. We're going to use the camel case version. Variables cannot start with a number. So you can have a number in your variable name, but it cannot be the first character in your variable name. So this is fine, this is not. And then again, they should be clear and meaningful. So to do this is basically saying, look at this code, look at the yellow warnings, look at the red errors, fix them so that your code will run, and then it wants you to add 3 lines to the story. Make sure you use at least 1 variable. So up here, I am creating 3 variables, and you can see that they've been created with the camel case naming convention. So line 14 is going to give me my first warning. If I mouse over it, it's going to kind of tell me what's going on. So pet name hasn't been declared. The reason, pet name is all lowercase, right? But when I created pet name, I used camel case with a capital N. So it sees these as 2 different names. So if I wanted to fix this, I need to make it match the name that I created when I created the variable. This one, right? You should know the problem here. We can't have a space, and that now matches the name that I created the variable with. Here we have weight, right? So I'm trying to use this variable weight, but I never created a variable weight. I created one that's pet weight. And then pet name. Again, we have a naming issue here with capitalization. I will let you fix that one on your own. What they do want you to do is add 3 lines to this story, so you're going to have to use at least one variable to do that. So up here, you will add a new variable name. All right. And then down here, when you're console logging out, you're going to need to console log 3 new lines, making sure that one line uses the new variable that you created. All right. So when I am grading this, I'm going to be making sure that you added at least one variable, that you added at least 3 lines, and that you use that new variable in at least one of your new console log lines. All right, lesson 3, we can see they want us to run this program to see how it works. So it's going to start getting into some basic arithmetic operations. So run the program to see how it works. 3 of the questions are missing code. Write expressions using variables that evaluate to the correct answer. Comments show you where to do it. So we're going to look for the comments. So it tells us where we are actually going to be adding this line of code. So let's go ahead and run it one time. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so I can see what's going on. So how many hours in a week? 168. How many seconds? 72 degrees in Celsius. Right, so it basically went through and did these, but we can see 3 of them didn't produce an answer, and that's because that is the line that they're asking us to add. So here is the first comment. It says add code to add the numbers 1 through 10. So I'm going to console log, and it wants me to add the numbers 1 through 10. So I'm going to put 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 10. And then I need to end every line in JavaScript with a semicolon. So if I were to run this now, where it says, what do the numbers 1 through 10 add up to? Instead of just an empty string, I should see the result of this expression. All right, so I can see the numbers 1 through 10 add up to 55. All right, so what you need to do is right here, you're going to add another console log where you're going to multiply the numbers 1 through 10. And then here, you're going to add a console log where you divide 1 by 7. So when I run this, I should see results for these lines. All right, so this is level 4. It says variables can be created and assigned using a single command like var my age equals 16. We've kind of talked about this. You can use variables in an expression like my age plus 1. The value of the variable is used to evaluate the expression. So whatever the value of my age is set to, it will add 1 to that automatically. All right, that's the nice thing about variables. So they want us to run this code to see how it works. Keep an eye on the watch panel. Which lines of code use a variable inside an expression? Does the value of the variable ever change? Why? Add code that uses variables and expressions to complete the story. So I can see a couple places in here where I'm using a variable along with an operator to evaluate an expression. Line 11 is doing it, line 15 is doing it, and down here there's a couple comments where they're telling us to add some code to calculate certain things. So we'll run this the first time, just so we can kind of see what's going on. All right, so it's kind of doing these console logs, but we can see in 50 years old I will be, there's no value there. So they want us to add this. All right, so what I am going to do is I am going to the variables tab. I'm going to add a console log. I'm then going to go to the math tab because I know I'm going to have to do some math here, right? It's saying in 50 years I will be. So I know my age. All right, I'm setting my age to 16. what I need to do is find out what my age will be in 50 years. So I know I'm going to be doing some math. So I'm going to drag this little plus sign into this. And I know I need to add 50, but I want to add 50 to whatever the value of my age is. All right, so if I reset and clear the console, run it again, I should see, since I'm 16 right now, in 50 years I'll be 66. So below this, in 50 years I should see 66. So in 50 years I will be, and there it is, 66 years old. So you need to come to line 26. You're going to do the same thing I just did. So you're going to add a console log, add that plus, and you're going to do the math to figure out your age in months. All right. Lesson 5. This one introduces concatenation, right, which we have talked about, but this idea that we can use the plus operator on two strings or a number in a string to bring those two together as one string. So the string sun and the string rise with the plus sign evaluates to sunrise. This number 4 plus the word ever is going to evaluate to a string forever. We're also being introduced to this new line character. So what we can do with this is create line breaks in our console log. And this is the character that we're going to use. All right, so this is a \n. So if you look in your code, you're going to see some \n's. Right, and what this is going to do, I'm going to run this code. This line right here, even though it's typed as one line, these line breaks, when it logs out, it's going to cause a line to move down before the next part of the string is printed. So it's going to say this, and then a line break, and then it's going to have one below the word this. And this kind of helps us in how to format so we can get a nice user interface, something that makes sense to the user. So I'll go ahead and run this really quick. And that's what you see happening right here. Right? This string, even though it's written as one line in our code, it's printing out over multiple lines because every time it sees that \n, it's moving the text down to the next line. So again, we can use this, and we're going to practice this on the next level. So what it wants us to do is run the code to see what it does, which we just did, then write code to answer the last two questions using variables. Use string concatenation to make your response print on a single line. So this one, we're looking, add code to answer the following questions. Make sure your answer prints on a single line. How many days have you been alive? Add code here. There are 365 days in a year. All right. So what I want to do, I'm going to do this one in text mode. I'm going to console log, then in quotes, I've been alive about, I'm going to concatenate the age variable that I have. I'm looking for the number of days, so I'm going to take my age times 365, and then I'm going to concatenate days, and then I'm going to add a new line break because I want this to go on a separate line. All right. So in block mode, it looks like this. But I'm doing this in text mode because sometimes those math functions are just easier to do. So right now, when I consoled it out before I added this, how many days have you been alive? It's just, there's nothing there. It's not answering it. So when I run this, I should see this sentence that I've created, and then this should go below it. All right, so here it is. I've been alive about 5,840 days. There is one more for you to do. I want you to add code here. There are 12 months in a year. You're supposed to answer the question, how many months have you been alive? So you'll be using concatenation, that math function, and that new line break to get that answered. Level 6. This one, we're dealing with this counter pattern. So this is this idea. I can create a variable, and then I can add 1 to it every time by using this pattern. Right? So what I'm basically saying, and we've seen this before, I want to set my var equal to whatever my var currently is plus 1. So if my var is set to 5, when this runs, it will read my var plus 1 or 5 plus 1. That will evaluate to 6, and then it will update my var to 6. So the 5 will get thrown out, and 6 becomes the value. So on this one, they want us to run the program, see what it does. So if we run it, speed it up for you. Right, I can add 5 at a time, but if I click the 20, it's playing a sound, but nothing's happening. So what they want us to do is write the code to make the 20 button work. I'm going to leave this one for you. What I will say is if you look at lines 7 through 11, you can see an on event for any time that 5 button is clicked. If you look at lines 16 to 20, you see an on event for the 20 button. You can see that it's currently playing the sound, but it's missing these 2 lines of code. All right, so you're going to want to kind of replicate this so that you use this counter pattern using the variable dollars to not add 5 but add 20. And then once that's done, you want to set the property for the dollars label to the new value of dollars. So you should be able to do this. Just look at these lines 8 and 9, replicate them on lines 18 and what will be 19. And then go ahead and run that and make sure that when you click the 5 it works and when you click the 20 it works. All right, level 7. We're looking at the counter pattern again because we can use this with string, right? It's this idea that I can keep concatenating a new string to the end of my current string to slowly build a sentence or to build a list of things, right? In this case, those things are going to be reminders. So they want us to run the program to see how it works. And they want us specifically to look at this new block called getText on line 14. So this right here, right, it comes from the UI control getText. And if I mouse over it, I can see that getText, it's going to take an ID value in, and it's going to get the text from whatever that element is. All right, so this is a way for us to get an input from a user. So if I click this remind button, because I'm listening for an event on that, it's going to set the value of this new reminder variable to whatever the text is that I typed in this input, which is this right here. So that's a way for me to get the user to give me some text and then for me to store it as a variable and use it somewhere. This right here, line 15, this is the counter pattern with strings. So again, I'm saying all reminders equals all reminders plus my new reminder. All right, so if I hit remind right now, I can see that it's adding my text up here, but it's really hard for me to read. So if you're looking at what you're supposed to do, I want you to add code so each reminder is added to a different line. So I'm going to use that new line character with the \n. It also wants me to make sure that this text gets deleted, right? Which is kind of good user interface. If I type something into this input and I click this button, I want this to get blanked. I want whatever I type to show up here on a new line, and then the user can just come back and type another reminder. I don't have to come in and delete it, right? I'm deleting it for them. So first things first, I'm going to add the new line character. I'm going to show you guys how to do this because this one tends to confuse students. One, they tend to do a /n instead of a \. So make sure if you're looking at the bottom of this character, if it's going backwards, it's a \. If you look at the bottom and it's going forward, it's a /. So I'm going to switch to text mode because I can see this is that orange math function and those are hard to deal with in block mode. All right, so I'm actually going to add the new line break in between. And then I'm going to concatenate the reminder. All right, so it should be all reminders, new line break, and then add my new reminder. So that's whatever was already there, which in this case was feed the cats, new line break, and Mr. Randall should now move down here. So if I run this, you can see that's working. My line break is telling it to put test below the last reminder that I added. But this is still not getting deleted. So just like get text is being used to get the text in here, I can also use set text to set the text that's in here. So this ID is the reminder input. So I want to set text for reminder input. And if you remember from the last video, if I want a empty string, I just put 2 quotes. Right? I'm not going to put a space in between. I'm not going to put any characters in between. I'm just going to put 2 quotes. That will create a string, but it's going to be an empty string, which is what I want, because I want this to get erased. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to go back to my Mr. Randall reminder, and I should see Mr. Randall show up down here, and it should disappear here. All right, which is exactly what happened. So kind of your takeaways is this new line break can move that text to a new line. We can get text from text input elements or text area elements, right? We can get the text from any element, honestly, as long as we use the right ID. We can also set the text for any element as long as we tell it what ID we want to set the text for, and then put text in there, right? If I did this again and I put ASDF, what you're going to see is when I run this, it's going to put test down here. This is going to get replaced with this text. All right, and there it is. So that's how that works. But again, I should see it like this. You should be emptying it out using this empty string. All right, lesson 8 brings up this idea of local and global variables again. I've talked about this a few times in general. It's this idea that we want to create our variables outside of any on event, so that var keyword should not be inside of the on event. It should always be outside. If we do it inside, we're creating a local variable, which at some point in this class we do create local variables, but for now we want to avoid it. So I'm going to leave you to watch this video. It's going to explain global and local variables better than I could in this video. Make sure you read through this, especially what to avoid down here, and try to understand this concept as best you can. When you come in for your check-in, I'm probably going to ask you about this, so kind of be ready for that. Level 9 is going to have you practice some of that local and global variables. So they are going to give you an app where they're creating a variable clicks. They're then using that var keyword inside the on event, which is what you just learned you should never do. So if we wanted to fix this, we would just need to delete this var in front of it. By doing that, I get rid of my warning and this app will work properly. So on your own, I want you to run it once before you fix it, kind of see what happens, and then fix it like I just showed you and run it again and notice how it starts working. All right, this is the level where you're going to put it all together. So I want you to do A and I want you to do C. You do not have to do B. All right, not that B is hard to code, but B has you dealing with like workouts and hydration, and you're converting, different measurements to different values. Students tend to really struggle with B. So if you want a challenge and you want to try to do B, you're welcome to do it. I will not be grading B. I will not mark you down if you do not do B, but you do need to finish A and finish C. So I should be able to go in here, look at your code, see all the changes that they're requesting for you to get full credit. And then 11 and 12 are just 2 check for understanding, so make sure you get through those. All right, so when you're done with this, you should have all of these bubbles filled in. When I look at level 10, I should see that you finished A and finished C. Do not worry about B. And that will be it for lesson 3.